Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone. Welcome to the All Paths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to grow your family. We're your hosts, Emily and Kate, from the nonprofit organization All Paths Family Building. And today we're talking with our friend Karen about her journey. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here, ladies. It's like coming home, you guys.
I know. It's so nice to see you. So we are fortunate enough to know you very well. But before we get into anything, we would love for you to introduce yourselves for our listeners.
Sure. My name is Karen. I live in East Bridgewater with my husband, Jay, and my daughter, Annalise, and my stepdaughter, Olivia, who just turned 15 last week. I originally grew up in Bridgewater. I was away for many years living in New Hampshire, and I've been back here the last 2 years and just building a life for myself here. So it's been great.
So to go back in time a little bit, where did your journey to growing a family begin?
So I was married. I'm divorced now, so I'm just gonna put that out there. I think it started like 99% of us like blissfully happy, and you're jumping right in. We were married about a year. We were living in Wisconsin at the time. So when we moved back, we got rid of the birth control and we kind of just got started, and I had no idea. Like it kind of just it came right at me out of left field. I had no idea anything was truly wrong when we first started. But as the months progressed, it was pretty apparent. My cycles were extremely long and very unpredictable. And I started off at my regular gynecologist's office. It was a small office. They had, their infertility portion of it. They were always very positive, and everyone starts off exactly the same with the same protocols and the same, lab work and ultrasounds. And I remember distinctly the first doctor walking in was like, "Okay, we're gonna get you pregnant." Like it was nothing. Like it was something that they do every single day. So I started off like most, letrozole and Clomid and all those things, and nothing worked. So then we kind of ramped it up and moved on to IUI. And I don't know, deep down inside of me, I don't know if it was just like a protection that I had. I always felt like nothing was going to work. I don't know. I don't know if it was, and I'm a very positive person, so I can't really equate it to that. I just knew. So as kind of things ramped up as far as IUIs with injectables and all those things, I need a lot of breaks in between, mainly for like mental health and to regroup, to reset. I was 31 or 32 at the time, so every person around me was having kids, like one after another, and I felt behind. I felt like you weren't part of the club. So after all those things did not work at all, they had a protocol after the third IUI. You had to go in for like an exploratory laparotomy to find out about endometriosis. That was my first surgery that I had. Nothing was really found. And then I got referred to Boston IVF. And I was lucky at the time, as far as luck you can have when you're dealing with infertility. All these places were pretty much in my backyard, which was kind of nice to have, like, because in New Hampshire, sometimes access to some of those doctors and some of those programs just are not there. So I went to Boston IVF and I had some testing done, and she immediately found that I had some polyps. And she actually showed me, I'll never forget, it was a very painful procedure. And at the end, she showed me this picture and she said, "You have a polyp right here, right where implantation usually occurs." So at that point, I felt like I had an answer. As much as you don't want to find out something is wrong, it was like finally, because like many others, unexplained. And it just gets very frustrating. So fast forwarding to that, I went on to my second surgery and they removed what had to be removed. And we kind of had the IVF talk. And at that point in time, my then husband and I were not on the same page. I wanted to go full steam ahead with IVF, and he was very conservative and very reserved in that aspect. And he just kind of put a halt to it all. So that was really like tough on our marriage. We kind of came to a almost a standstill. I wanted to go one direction fertility wise, and he wanted to go the other. So we took a really long break at that time, a good 9 months or so to regroup. And then I think at that point we had gone to the IUI with injectables. We had decided that was going to kind of be our last ditch effort. And we had 2 of those. And again, I just knew kind of in my heart of hearts that it just was not going to work for us. So, we took the time to mourn, especially me. Kind of that was going to be the end of our road for fertility treatments. Also, too, because in New Hampshire, we didn't have it, we weren't covered. So everything was out of pocket for us. It's just passed recently from some of the awesome work through All Paths, but at that time, I mean, we went through savings, we went through, health savings accounts. I mean, you name it. As everyone knows, it's very pricey. So not only emotionally, now financially, it's really tough on you. So at that point, when I knew that second IUI with injectables did not work, it was like a switch, kind of for me. I was so focused on getting pregnant that I lost sight of the fact that I wanted to be a mom. Like that was the end game, the end goal. I lost myself somewhere along the way for sure. So I kind of turned to my then husband and was like, what do you think about adoption? Like we haven't ever really talked about it. And he looked at me and was like, I think we should go for it. It was kind of like a very profound point in our marriage because we never truly agreed on a lot of things. I wanted to go, like I said, full steam ahead with IVF, and he was reserved with it. And so we kind of just like jumped right into it. We did a little bit of research, and I didn't know anyone at that time who adopted. Like I didn't have anyone in my circle, no one in my family. And so we ended up going, like a friend of a friend. I made a phone call. We spoke for about an hour, and within the next day we applied. It was a national agency. She had good success. So, you kind of think in your head, like, okay, she had good success. We're going to have, good success. So we started down that path of adoption.
So you applied, and then where did the process go from there?
So we applied and we had a phone interview. They were out of the Chicago area, and we happened to be the last interview of the year, which was kind of like neat. I think it was like December 29th. They took a certain amount of couples every month, just to keep, the numbers low, so the success rates would be on the higher side. So we were the last interview of the month, and on this January 2nd, we got the email that we were chosen to be part of their adoption process. And at that time, I talk about full speed ahead. I mean, there's home studies and fingerprints and forms, and it's almost like fertility treatment, like to the next level. It's not so invasive physically, but mentally and emotionally, it's very taxing for sure. So we checked off every box that we had to do and went through every process that we had to do, and it was a lot. It's one thing I think that people don't understand. You wouldn't know unless you're involved in the process. So I remember handing in our last piece of paper to the state of New Hampshire and was like, this is it. Like, we can go forward. And then we had to bring it back. We had to send everything back to the agency, and they had to review it all. And at that point, we had to make a profile. We had to do all those things, put together pictures, put together a summary. We had a lot of pictures of our dog, which was really cool. And that'll kind of come into play later. And then you wait. So then you wait, and you kind of wait, and you kind of wait. When I used to run the adoption support group, I used to kind of say it's like your 2-week wait is now 9 months or 10 months or 11 months. It's a very long process. And I think with treatment, it's similar in that, like, you have your highs and your lows. I mean, you're super excited as you do your profile, and super excited as you tell, your friends and your family, and then everything kind of comes to a halt. And again, you're in that waiting process. And so we were done with in January, we were accepted, and we were done with all the pieces that we had to do, I think by early March. So we were waiting family in March. And again, we just waited. It was a long summer. My best friend got pregnant. A coworker got pregnant during that time. So that was challenging for me to navigate the emotions of being extremely happy for them. And again, I'm in the wait. And we got a phone call. It was kind of interesting. I I had a voicemail, and I'm kind of notorious for not checking my voicemails very often. And I thought it was Illinois, and I'm like, how did I miss a phone call? How did I miss a voicemail? And it had come in the evening before. It was a Friday morning, and my then husband had gone out and got a nice coffee for me. And I listened to the voicemail, and I can almost say it by heart. And it was our adoption agency. We listened to it so many times, saying that there was an expected mother that if you reviewed our profile and wanted to speak with us. They gave us very like limited information about her, her name, her age, where she was living, and they said she'd like to speak with you guys like over text. So I immediately like almost dropped the phone. I called my then husband at that moment while he's in the line at Dunkin' Donuts screaming, and he thought something terrible had happened to me or happened to our dog or happened to the house. He was like, how come you just couldn't tell me when came home in 5 minutes? And I said, I went blank. Like I couldn't think straight. That much excitement. So we started basically just texting her and I, and it was almost like online dating, what kind of foods do you like? And, it starts very like on the surface questions, movies, TV. She was in veterinary school at that time. So we talked a lot about her schooling and her love for animals and our love for animals. And so this was very early September. This was like September 8th. So we texted for like 24 hours. And the next day she had said to us, I've been talking to some families, but I connected the most with you guys, and I wanted to make this an official match. So that was a pretty like amazing day. That was on September 9th. She officially matched with us, and we kind of went forward, through the agency. And then again, you kind of wait. She wasn't due until the end of November. So we had a couple months. And we would, text every couple days, we would check in with her. She had her life and she had school, and she was, very difficult decision. But, we were fortunate in the fact of the matter is we always kept in contact. With adoption, there's a lot of ups and downs with expected, parents, moms, dads, families. They're not in a situation sometimes that's very positive. We're very lucky that, she had access to her phone, and she had access to shelter, and she had all those things. So we could keep in really close contact. And she went to her doctor's appointments, very religiously. And she would always check in with us after. Very beginning of November, she messaged us and said, don't freak out, but I was at the hospital last night and I had some preterm labor, and, I'm okay now, and it slowed down, and I'm home. And I was like, we have to go out there. Like, I can't miss any of this, because at that time she invited us to be in the delivery room, which was like a really special thing to be able to experience that. Yeah. So I like said to John, I was like, we're not missing this. And so I booked us flights the next day, like without even kind of like thinking. And she was like, yeah, if you want to come out, I have an appointment Thursday. I can't promise you anything's gonna, happen, but, and what was really interesting and really kind of cool about the whole experience is we stayed with family out there, extended family that I had never met. So I had met, like, going out there and staying there, 25 of my relatives that I didn't even know. I knew that they existed.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. They welcomed us with open arms. They were my dad's side of the family. So we flew into Atlanta and we stayed with them, and we went to her doctor's appointment. And just like anything with life, her symptoms or her signs of labor completely stopped. And the doctor was like, I can't explain anything what's going on, but you're stable right now. So kind of like looked at each other, John and I said, well, I don't want to miss anything. Like, I have a place to stay. Like, why don't I stay and you go home and take care of the dog? And when it's time, and if this happens again, like, you can fly right back out. So he ended up flying out, and everything came to a standstill for 3 weeks. But it was a really special time because I got to go to 2 more doctor's appointments with her and have lunch, and we got our nails done together, and we got to spend some time together. I gave her space, and, there was a lot of I needed my space, she needed her space, but we had a chance to really like talk and take some pictures and just, spend some quality time together, which is a really special part of the story and things I get to talk to my daughter about and show her pictures and show her like little mementos that I kept along the way. So we got down to the end of the month and I was at her appointment and she just looked at her doctor and said, this is the adoptive mom here. They're in from New Hampshire. Like, can we get this kind of going a little bit? And lo and behold, the doctor was like, yes, we can induce you. So I got on the phone with John and he flew in the next day and she was admitted to the hospital and in the evening. So we came the next morning and she labored all day long and I got to hold her hand and be there through, I was a labor coach kind of thrown into, I had never done anything like that. I had no preparation, but just like I guess natural instincts kick in, and I was able to be there. And at 10:18, Annalise was born, and it was like a pretty profound and pretty amazing experience. And her birth mom held her, and she got to stay with her birth mom for a couple of days in the hospital, and we were able to come in and visit. And it's a very emotional time, I think, for me, for Annalise's birth mom, for John. It was tough. She was very removed, like, to protect herself, I'm sure, through it all. And it was a hard time for me to almost navigate, like my excitement, my heart was being made whole and hers was, broken into a million pieces. And, I couldn't, wrap my head around it. And I had grown so close to her but I was so happy. It was a very like emotional time, but we got to see Annalise in the hospital for a couple days and she was born on a Thursday and Saturday, the attorney came in and we signed the paperwork and we made it official. And in the state of Georgia, they used to have a 10-day revocation period and they no longer have that, but she had 10 days to decide if she wanted to change her mind. And we passed through flying colors for whatever reason through New Hampshire. I think it's called ICPC. It's basically a pact in between the states. You can cross state lines when you adopt. And we passed within a couple days, but I was nervous to leave the state at that point. I didn't know if she was going to change her mind and her emotions. And we reached out to the attorneys and reached out to Annalise's birth mom and she said, nope, I want them to go home and start their life and I'm not going to change my mind. And we offered to see her the last time and she chose not to. And we had to just respect all her wishes. And she was in a tough place. And so, yeah, we packed our bags and kind of an interesting story. Atlanta got hit with a snowstorm. They got about an inch of snow, very, very early December. And we were supposed to fly out on Saturday and the inch of snow came on Friday and everything. Of course,
that's a snowstorm to them.
It was unbelievable to see Atlanta with 1 inch of snow and the panic. And people were texting us like, don't fly out Saturday. There could be ice. And I said, it's an inch of snow, guys. So our flight was canceled. So we ended up staying an extra day in Atlanta. But we joked that that Annalise's first snow was in Georgia. We were flying to New Hampshire, New England. And, and here she is in Atlanta getting snow. So it's funny. We have some pictures of her with her first snow.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I mean, I am privileged that I've known this story and I've known you, but I still got goosebumps. It's so powerful. And I think you were just so thoughtful throughout and just loved, I could hear it over and over again. So now I'll have it on a podcast. I can listen to it as many times as I want.
Thank you so much.
So how has the relationship been with her birth mom since then? Are you in touch at all, or how was that relationship navigated over the years?
Sure. So while we were in the hospital, we didn't see her birth mom really at all, and that was her birth mom's choice. So everything we kind of did was based upon, her choices. She just chose not to see us, and I think it was just the emotions, and we could respect that. But on the second day, we received a message from her nurse, and said, at this time she's choosing a closed adoption. She was kind of deciding between closed and semi-open. We talked a little bit about it while I was down there visiting with her or being with her, and I kind of left it, up to her. And So when we left the hospital, we did ask, can we say goodbye? And she agreed. She wanted to say goodbye to us. And we gave her a hug, and I told her I loved her. And that was like the last time I've ever spoken to her. We've just respected her wishes. It was really amazing. The hospital put together for her a box, and they sealed it, and they put like her hat, the birth announcement of hers, some little mementos, and they gave it to her and said, if you ever want, to open this. And so,
That's
yes,
lovely.
I know
That's really
it was
beautiful.
really thoughtful of them.
And again, it gives her the choice. I love how she was
Mhm.
really in control of as many of these decisions as possible. And even that is like it's here if and when you want it, but it's like sealed
Right.
so that it's not in your face. I think that's so lovely.
Yeah, it was. It was just a very nice gesture. And like we haven't had any contact since. And it's, I there's certain things, certain boundaries and certain respects that we have to have. So yeah,
Sure.
so she chose closed. I we think about her all the time, and picture of all of us on the delivery day and her birthday, I guess. And it's still in her room, and we talk about her, and we keep her memory alive, and we tell stories, and I show her pictures. We were just showing her pictures the other day of when she was born and when she was a baby, and she's getting to the age where she's having some more questions. So I think it's time for me to maybe reach out to a professional and kind of see, just to navigate these things. She's 7 and inquisitive and smart, and I think kids deserve to know where they came from. So we're navigating some waters that are unknown to us, but just like everything else in life, we'll get through it.
Well, we have some resources if you want some suggestions of people.
Wonderful, yes, I would love that.
So I think Emily alluded to this, or maybe you alluded to it, or both, but we are so fortunate that you're part of our All Paths family. You're a previous support group leader. Why did you decide to do that? Can you tell us about that experience?
Sure. It was funny. I was driving today trying to do the math, Kate. Like in what year did you reach out to me? I think our paths crossed, you and I, on Instagram, and you had seen that there was a need in the state of New Hampshire for some support groups. And I opened up a message, and I think you and I just started talking. And I think my daughter was about a year old at that time. So I think it was 2018. And I think the first couple months, not a soul showed up. And I think he kept telling me, like, they will come, they will come. And, I had to keep the faith for sure. And then a group of them started, a group of them, came, and I still talk to a lot of the couples that came to my very, very first group, to this
Wonderful.
day. Yeah. And then COVID hit. So all of the groups, all the in-person groups, as everybody knows, stopped for a bit. And at that point, I think they were looking for someone to do. When I was in New Hampshire, I was doing the general infertility group. I think that was the name of it. And then when COVID hit, I think they were looking for someone to do a remote adoption group, and that's where that kind of birthed from, and came to be right after COVID. I would joke that that's one of the best things to come out of COVID was running the adoption group, and it was amazing to connect with. It was mainly people, I think, in the wait, or trying to decide whether adoption was the right path for them, the right road for them. So that was a pretty amazing experience. And
Well, and you were great at it. But those are, you know, we always say like people are really welcome in our groups at any time of their journey. But I think it's really those crossroads that are so key, like the deciding points, the waiting points, like those are so critical. And so to have, you know, you there, I know what we hear from people all the time at how helpful that was. And just the groups in general, that's, I think, a huge purpose of why they exist.
absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the crossroads. I could relate to all those, couples or, women, men who came to the group. It's, you have to almost like grieve a decision, to end treatments or for whatever reason, whether they're not working or financial reasons or, any reason in between. So, giving them some hope and sharing the stories, my journey, I think, helped them along to, to help make that grieving process a little bit more bearable.
Mm-hmm. And just being around other people who understand that specific kind of journey and those emotions. Because I mean, you can have friends and family that are supportive and are, hopefully saying the right things and trying to be there for you. But if it just hits differently talking with someone who like really understands the intricacies of not only the process, but the emotions as well.
Absolutely. And, just speaks volumes to the need for these types of groups. And I think they're amazing.
So too, but that wasn't why I asked you, but I love to hear that. And obviously we agree. Um, did you feel like you had supports along the way when you were going through it? And if so, what were they?
Yeah. So during that time, I did have a very close friend that was going through infertility and treatments. Her story was that she got pregnant, so we couldn't connect on that level, but she remained a very close support system. I was very open with my journey, with family, with friends. I had many that didn't walk the path, obviously, of infertility, but were just a very like close support system to me. The Instagram community was super helpful. That was one of the best things I think I ever did. I had a personal one, and then I made one just for infertility. It kind of morphed into adoption after that. But just I connected with women all over the country. We'd often give each other like our phones, and we would text, and we saw each other at our lowest, and then it was beautiful when we saw each other at one of our our highest points, whether it be adoption, whether pregnant through IVF, or even just deciding that they're going to live a child-free life. And that was, I think, the turning point for me when I found that community. You hear so many bad things about social media, and I think this was one of the better things to come out of it. I didn't have, that in-state support, but just knowing I could get on and talk to anyone at any time. There was always someone around, so that was really helpful.
That is great. Well, that 24/7 support is something we really want to beef up for all paths too. The podcast is
Sure.
part of it and other things, but we really want to do more of that. Well, can you also share, you have an exciting thing happening professionally that I would love for you to share as
Sure.
well?
Yes. So I am an occupational therapist turned protein ball maker and tea maker. um, I'm still an OT. I still have my license. I think a lot of healthcare workers can identify. I just got burnt out, long hours and just the things that we saw through COVID. And I think it's just when I wasn't happy going to work, and I'm a very happy person, I knew at that moment I needed to make some sort of change. The protein balls were kind of the first thing that started. I was making them in my kitchen for my family, and my husband looked at me and was like, "You have to sell these." And I was like, "Absolutely not. I am not a salesperson." Like he's has a, he's an entrepreneur for sure. And he said, "No, you have to share these with the world." And started just with family and friends, and put it on Facebook. And next thing I knew, the local paper was interviewing me about it, and vendors started to reach out to me. "Hey, we want to carry these at our gym." I can proudly say my protein balls are at 4 gyms. They're at a farm stand. They're at a weight loss center. And I think the most exciting part is now we sell them at our shop. And, I knew I couldn't open up a shop to just sell, protein balls. I knew that they were popular. So we kind of just put our heads together, and that's where the energy teas came in. And
It's amazing. And I know this is not a commercial, but they are delicious.
yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of support, obviously, from my family and friends, but the community has been just amazing, and very welcoming to us. And it's kind of full circle moment. The plaza that my shop is in, there used to be a Dunkin' Donuts in that plaza, and that was my first job when I was 14 or 15 years old. So it's like a full circle.
Oh, no way.
I can
I
literally
love
look out
that.
the window and see where I used to work when I was 14 years old. And
So
uh,
cute.
yeah,
And that your shop has a very cool and fitting name for our mission as well.
Yes, my shop is called Possibilities, and the T's is TEAS at the end. You know, I'm a happy, like I said, a happy, positive person, and I think, you know, life is full of possibilities, and I think it's also meaningful to me because, you know, my business as well, you know, is completely full of possibilities. So it's great.
Yes, well, we're so happy for you, and it's great. It's infectious to see your joy with it. I know it's hard work, but your joy is so evident, and we love to see that as people who care about you as a person and your family. It's so fun to see, and it's just very, very delicious. So sign me up for the marketing team, basically.
Absolutely.
I say, yeah, you're going to be the first influencer on board.
Yes, yes.
Great.
And I will we'll put some info about possibilities in the show notes too.
Thank you
Because
so
we got
much.
to support
Yeah,
our small businesses.
thank you.
Well, before we wrap up, we do have two questions that we ask all our guests. So, of course, we want to ask you. So, first is what is one thing you'd say to someone just starting to grow their family? And sort of the flip side of that is what's one thing you wish people would never say again to people who are struggling to build their family?
I would say you need to surround yourself um, with supportive people, you know, whether that's or a supportive person, you know. I didn't find a ton of support in my spouse, and I think some people can relate to that. Some people find complete support within their spouse, and that's wonderful too. You know, I didn't know anyone around me besides, you know, my friend who ended up, you know, getting pregnant, you know, dealing with infertility. So I sought out like social media. You know, there's Facebook groups, all paths groups. You know, there's a lot of different ways. Like you guys say, I mean, you have to find your people. It's a very lonely, dark road. I would say too, you know, when I said I took quite a few breaks, I found a therapist that specializes in infertility and loss, and she was like my lifeline. I would recommend to anyone that is, you know, maybe just not starting out, but even after a couple of months, it can get tiring and it can be very difficult. I know for me, that was one of the best things I ever did. You know, she saw me again at my very lowest, and it was great to be able to bring in like Annalise back after when she was a month old. You know, it was like a full circle moment. You know, to kind of come in. So I would say to kind of off you guys, find your people. You need that support, and it can come in a variety of ways and a variety of avenues. Social media gets a bad rap, but honestly, that's was the best thing that I did. So, and then something that you
Yeah. And then the other one is what do you wish no one would ever say again?
I got a lot of hang in theirs. I got a lot of it'll happen when it happens and it'll happen in its own time. And, you know, I never got pregnant, you know, it never happened for me, as everyone kind of had said. And it gets, it's very frustrating. You know, I know people mean well, and their intentions are there. But everyone's path is different. You know, some people have success on the first cycle and some people don't have success after 20 cycles. You know, it's not something that it looks different for every person. You know, everyone's path is different. And I think just saying things like, you know, it'll happen when it happens, and like I said, sometimes it just never does happen, and that can be tough to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything we didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
It was actually like really great to talk to you guys because, you know, not doing the groups, I mean, I don't talk about it really as much. It's not that, it's just I think as time goes on, you know, your life changes. I don't want to say priorities change. So it's nice to be able, like, you know, to go back and, you know, the feeling the very like low moments, and I wish I could go back to that girl and like say to her like everything is going to be okay, and
Yeah.
you know, and regardless of what your future looks like you are going to be okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, I think if we only could do that, it would be so much easier for so many people. It's just tell me the end of the story and I would be so much stronger. But just that question mark of like, how and where is this going to end and when? And was like, I can't bear that.
I remember like wishing for a crystal ball, like wishing I had a crystal ball in front of me and said, okay, in 1 year, in 2 years, 3 years, you're going to be a mom. So like you kind of had an end date or, the hope. And I think that's the hardest part about infertility is it is the question mark,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone described it as like a marathon where you kept moving the finish line. And I was like, oh, that's like a great analogy because that's so true and it's so terrible. Because like, I'm not a marathoner, but I can imagine that you're like really running for that finish line. I mean, there's a reason people yell out to the runners, like, you only have 1 more mile. It's because it's so helpful to know the end point. But if it kept moving, that would be, we know it's impossible. It's so hard. And this is something so much more emotionally taxing than a marathon, or differently taxing than a marathon. So. Well, Karen, we love you and thank you so much for joining us and for being part of the All Paths community and family. And we really appreciated having you on the podcast.
The pleasure was all mine. I enjoyed talking to you ladies, and thanks for letting me share my story.
We hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at allpathsfb or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. All Paths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a special shout out to our platinum sponsor, EMD Serono. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.